So why did I create Langford International? Years ago, I was invited to be a part of a major educational experience in Alaska called Mount Edgecombe High School in Sitka, Alaska. The state had dumped millions of dollars into the education system and it wasn't working. Many of us were brought together along with the superintendent at that time to create a new model, a new way of thinking about education. And our theory was that really it wasn't us as educators that was a problem, it was the parents. And if we could somehow have a school without parents, that would solve all the problems. So literally our solution to that was to have a public boarding school. And in 1985, Mount Edgecombe High School was born as a public boarding school, one of the really unique experiments in education. It's still in existence today and still thriving. We came together and thought, wow, we're going to do education better than anybody else. We're going to work students harder. We're going to give more homework. We're going to have all the technology. We're just going to do it better. And we have these kids 24 hours a day because they're now living on the campus. We can accomplish things that nobody else could accomplish. One of our theories at the time was that if these students don't work hard here, we're just going to send them home, because they had other schools that they came from that they could go to. And this was by far a great opportunity for these students. And these were largely rural students, mostly Native American students from about 23 different ethnic groups from throughout the state. And they were looking for a new opportunity as well. When we started applying that theory, the only problem was by the end of the first year, we had sent home 42% of the population. And it became a sort of a joke around the school that this would be a great place to work if we could get rid of all these students, and we'd have plenty of time for curriculum meetings and teacher meetings and all kinds of things. It was at the end of that first year that our superintendent at the time, Larry Rocheleau, said to myself and the rest of the faculty, go out over the summer and find something different, because what we're doing is not working. And if we can't do a better job than their normal schools, there's no reason for us to exist. Well, a couple of years before, I'd finished my master's degree, and I'd done a book report on this gentleman by the name of Dr. W. Edwards Deming. And Deming was very prominent at the time in 1985 as really the #1 person in the world for quality management. So I called him up, called up his office, and talked to his secretary, said, I'd like to talk to Dr. Deming. And she said, well, he's pretty busy, but you can come to one of his seminars. So I did that in the summer of 1986 and went to a Deming seminar, and really kind of changed my life. Many people think of Deming's work as the father of the third revolution, industrial revolution, but Deming was much more than that. He was really a champion of the individual. So Deming had a phrase where he said, people have a right to joy in their work. Well, as a teacher, I interpreted that as students have a right to joy in their learning. And when I went back to my classrooms that fall, and I started looking at the situation. In fact, on the first day of school, about half the students were coming in and putting their heads on their desks and just totally tuning out before I'd even said good morning or said anything. They'd had such bad experiences with schools up to that point that they were all ready just to tune out anything that went on. So, wow, there wasn't much joy going on at that point. So I had to start thinking differently, and thinking differently about how to sort of motivate those people. And that was one of our problems, is we were trying to motivate these people. Games, rewards, extrinsic motivators, prizes, all kinds of things. Well, these students had experienced thousands of those motivators in their life, and it wasn't working. So the sharp departure from that was really what led me into starting to understand how quality management kinds of concepts affect education. I started applying these things first in just my own classrooms, and saw a noticeable difference in those students about how they worked, talked, thought, how they interrelated with myself and their peers. That soon started to spread to other teachers in classrooms, and by 1992, we were full on implementing this concept of quality learning into the school. It was at that time in 1992 that Dr. Deming really encouraged me to start a consulting company. He said, you know, your job is not just to develop one school or one classroom. You've done that. You've proved that that works. You need to get out into the world and start training and developing thousands of places. And that was really the beginning of Langford International in 1992. And then since that time, I've literally traveled the world in multiple countries, thousands of schools, and literally hundreds of thousands of people have gone through training, basically learning the same kinds of things I learned as a classroom teacher. Then over the years, that's sort of segued into what we call now Langford Learning. So a lot of the tools and concepts that I've developed and created meshed with quality management concepts into a whole new way to work, think, and talk, and that's called quality learning, or that's what's called. So that is what is called Langford Learning.